Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We appreciate your time. We know if there's one thing that real estate investors are, that is busy. So we appreciate you guys carving out an hour to learn about our Florida market and our Florida opportunities with us this evening. I see some familiar faces on here. To those of you who've joined us before, thank you for joining us again on another one of our Marshall Reddick educational seminars. I see some new names here as well. I spoke to most everybody before the call tonight, but for those of you who are new with us this evening, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. Please feel free to take notes this evening if that works for you, but do know that this is being recorded, and we're going to send out a copy of this recording to everybody after the seminar this evening. So don't feel like you absolutely have to take notes. Everything we speak of is going to be brought back to you here. So tonight, we're talking about Florida, right? Marshall Reddick is in a number of markets, and every market's a little bit different. They return differently, they have different pros and cons, all of that kind of good stuff. And Florida has been an absolutely exceptional market for our investors over the years. And so we're going to dive into that market here this evening. I am joined by my coworker and Florida investment agent extraordinaire, Ku's going to jump in here in a few slides. And she's going to dig into the Florida market. We're going to go over trends and forecasts. We're going to talk about why our investors and how our investors have found success in Florida. And we're going to go over a couple example properties so that you guys can get an idea of what those numbers look like. So a little bit about me. Nice to meet you guys. My name is Tyler. I've been a licensed realtor since 2017. I've been with Marshall Reddick for quite a long time now. And I started my life in New York. I was born and raised in New York, and I went to school for portfolio management and financial analysis. It was my goal to go to Wall Street. That's always what had fascinated me, and investing and portfolio management, all that good stuff. Graduating when I did, not only had the market collapsed, but it had collapsed due to the financial sector. And it was next to impossible with my little experience being fresh out of college to actually get a job on Wall Street. And so I started selling real estate, right? And then years later, I had found Marshall Reddick, who was doing investment real estate. And I was like, wow, this would be a really good fit to put these two parts of my education and my past together. And it's been just a dream ever since. In 2022, I finished the negotiation mastery program at Harvard as well. My background, I've done about 90 transactions for about 100 million in volume. I'm just 3 or 4 transactions away now from closing my 100th investment transaction, and that'll be happening over the next 30 days or so. So that's a really exciting milestone that I look forward to celebrating. I have to update this next one. As of today, I've closed real estate in 14 states now, with a personal goal to hit all 50 before my career is over. I have over 200 5-star reviews across Zillow, Google, and Facebook. And I think that's important because while I'm trying to put my best foot forward here this evening with you guys and, relay that, we have education and experience in what we're talking about here, I think it's important for you guys to have an avenue to see what my investor clients are saying about working with me. So I would invite anyone here to check out those reviews. I was recently featured on the Icons of Real Estate podcast. It was a 1-hour interview where we were talking about, how we've been able to stand out as far as our real estate services. So if anyone is interested to learn a little bit more about me and my past, feel free to Google that. And then this is my family here at the bottom. This is my lady, Divya. Divya works for Johnson & Johnson. She runs clinical trials for their medical device organization. And these are our dogs, Oliver and Lucy. And again, it's so nice to meet you guys. I know a lot of us have already spoken, but for those that I haven't had the honor to speak with yet, that's a little bit about me. So let's talk a little bit about Marshall Reddick, right? So Marshall Reddick, first and foremost, we're a real estate broker. In any given year, we buy, sell, and 1031 exchange about 800 investment properties, but we're also a property manager. Right, for the first 35 years or so of Marshall Reddick's existence, we were helping our clients identify real estate assets all across the U.S. that made sense for their strategy and their portfolio. And unfortunately, when it came time to hand them over to the property managers in those areas, we couldn't always continue the incredible service they had come to expect from us, right? And so it became one of those, if you want it done right, do it yourself sort of situations. And so we started property managing here in-house. Today, we manage over 3,000 properties across our market. In any given month, we're onboarding 10 to 20 new properties. So we're not trying to grow too fast. We want to ensure that we're keeping incredible service for our clients. But the property management has really allowed our service to kind of get to that next level, if you will. We're also a private money lender, right? And so what that means is that and sorry guys, I just got a text from one of the people in our seminar this evening that said they were unable to see my screen. There is a questions checkbox next door. If you guys can see my screen, if you could please let me know, I would appreciate that. Okay, and so, and if for some reason my screen is not sharing, I'm going to correct that and we will start over here. So we are also a private money lender, right? And so what that means is that real estate professionals who are doing real estate projects, so fix and flips, IOs, bridge loans, things of that nature, most of the time they can't utilize conventional lending, right? And so they come to someone like Marshall Reddick, where we help fund their projects, right? And we also have an investment fund here at Marshall Reddick. And this is where our clients can pool their money together, and then we manage that money, investing in first lien holder positions on mortgages, right? And so by having all these different modalities and ways of investing in real estate, we're able to provide our clients multiple options when it comes to real estate investing. Now, all of these work differently. They return differently at different velocities, different speeds. They all have pros and cons. And there's no right answer. What it comes down to is, what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Okay, all right, 1 second, guys. Thank you so much, Raphael, for letting me know that you cannot see my screen. So let me try this. Here we go. I think we got it there. Perfect, and let me just confirm. Perfect, okay. Sorry about that, guys. So just, again, this is me, Tyler. Nice to meet you. Okay, and so anyhow, right, so and I apologize about that, guys. Gotta love technical errors. By having all these different real estate modalities, you know, we're able to help accomplish a wide array of real estate goals, right? And my job here at Marshall Reddick, I'm an advisor. My job is to get to know all of you and understand what it is you're trying to accomplish, and then help direct you towards which modality we believe is going to be able to best accomplish that for you, right? Some clients are entering retirement and they're finding a loss of W-2 income, right? And so their goal might be to offset that loss of W-2 income. Other clients might be working on preparing for their children's college education, right? Some clients are just simply looking to improve their net worth. And depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish, we're going to help you guys understand which of these modalities is going to help make those dreams a reality. And that's who we are. And this is our national footprint. So Marshall Reddick, as I'm sure you can imagine, being in business since 1979, we have agents in all 50 states, right? So if you have a property in Alaska that has not been performing well for you, and you're looking at 1031 exchange that into a newer, hotter market with better price to rent ratios, cash on cash returns, all that kind of stuff, we can help you. But these are the areas where you are going to find physical footprints of Marshall Reddick. These are where our brick and mortar offices are. This is where our property management is located. All these offices will have buying agents, selling agents, leasing agents, maintenance managers, property managers, accounting, all that good stuff. If anyone here is located in these markets, please feel free to stop into the office and meet the team. We'd love to meet you face to face. So how do we decide what makes a good market? And how did we decide to put our boots down in these areas, right? So these are the things that we look for, and in no specific order, right? But we're looking for places with strong job markets and also economic diversity, right? It's very important to us. We help our clients invest in areas that not only have, a tenant base that makes good, consistent income, but also that the economy is diverse. Think about Detroit, right? When Detroit had its collapse, it was very much a single industry collapse, but such a strong majority of the tenant base in those markets were in the auto industry, right? And when that happens, it sent ripples all throughout that city, right? So we like to be in places where we have lots of different large employers and lots of different industries and markets, so that if we do see a market shift or an industry shift, there's plenty of tenants working in other industries to help offset that risk, right? We're also looking at vacancy rates. We like to invest in markets with very low vacancy rates, and it's a kind of a twofold, right? One is we can see that there's a large tenant base and that this tenant base is turning, so that we're consistently getting more and more people who are looking for rents. But also, we want, from an investment point of view, to have our vacancy rates be low, right? Because there's two things that are going to kill your return when you invest in real estate. It's vacancy and maintenance, right? And vacancy is every single day that property is not generating income to help offset your fixed expenses. That costs you money, it dilutes your return. So we want to be in places with low vacancies. We're also looking at markets with housing affordability, right? There are plenty of markets in this country that would make an absolute wonderful place to live personally, right? But a lot of these markets tend to be very expensive, and it really offsets the price to rent ratios. So we're looking in markets with housing affordability because A, it helps our investors be able to grow and scale a portfolio, but B, also being in a affordable place helps tenants be able to afford rent, right? And it opens up our number of prospective tenants, right? We're looking for markets that are landlord friendly, of course. We have an extremely low eviction rate here at Marshall Reddick, and that's because of how deep we screen our tenants. And towards the end of this seminar, I'm going to touch base on our property management service. But we have found that through incredibly deep screening, we can ensure that we're getting A-class tenants. But that's not to say it doesn't happen. And 99% of the time, when we have a eviction, it's from a property that we've taken under management that came with a tenant that we did not screen, right? And as we're going through this eviction process, we can see, okay, here's a bunch of red flags that we would have said, okay, this is not the tenant for us or our clients, right? But when you do go through something like this, being in a landlord-friendly state not only makes it easier, right, and less stress and less headache, but it's often much cheaper, right? So that's very important. We invest in markets with strong education. We're very much data nerds here at Marshall Reddick, right? And you can imagine that managing over 3,000 properties, when we're crunching the data, we find statistical averages. And we are constantly seeing tenants moving in or wanting to move in to the areas that we invest in due to the schools. It helps with the appreciation of the property, and it helps with the demand. If you're getting multiple prospective tenants on your property, it allows you to pick the best one, which is going to help your returns, right? And then finally, we want to be in markets with reliable property management. You never want to invest into a market where there's only one property manager, because there's no need for that property manager to ensure that they're providing incredibly good service, because they're the only name in the game. You want to invest in markets where there are many property management options, and it forces the property managers to all be on their A game and provide good service, right? And so that's how we've ended up in these areas here. And finally, before I let Ku take over, this is us. right? These are our employees in all of our different offices here. And we like to share this because we think it's important to, you know, ensure you guys that when you're working with Marshall Reddick, you are working with professionals. No one here does real estate as a side hobby or a side hustle or anything of that nature. Everyone here is extremely educated and extremely experienced specifically on real estate investing and property management. And that not only provides a really incredible service to you, the clients, but it provides a great service to your tenants as well. And that's what helps keep our tenants stay. On average, our tenants stay for approximately 3 years, which is a lot longer than the industry standard, right? And that comes from your tenant having an absolutely awesome service. That awesome service comes from having educated and experienced people answering the phones when they call. So that is us. We're so happy to have you guys here this evening. With that, I'm going to put myself on mute here. And then Ku, I'm going to let you take over and walk our clients through our Florida markets and what opportunities we're seeing today. And Ku, thank you so much for being here. I know it is late in Florida. We appreciate your time.
Yes, when you said 4, I'm thinking, oh, wow, or 5. But thank you so much. And thank you for taking your time to spend it with us here. I can only say, Tyler, I'm going to take a bow to you for your success. Woo-hoo! Thank you for all that knowledge. So a little bit about me. I'm actually originally from Minnesota, but I've been coming down to Southwest Florida for the last 30 years. I do specialize in the investment and the real estate, residential real estate, and I do kind of have quite a diverse background from accounting to HVAC, and then I, moved to a fashion industry, cosmetic industry, and then managed a huge territory. But I did do real estate back in the day when I was ever so young, and that day is far behind me. And I do have 2 babies, 4-legged babies, and unfortunately, I didn't take a picture of them to show you. But it's my pleasure to be here with you tonight, and I want to get rolling on here. And let's see what we have to offer you in Florida. Let me. I am clicking, and I'm not able to switch.
No worries. I will switch for you. Just let me know when you want me to go next. And I'm going to try and share the keyboard access with you again.
Okay. Perfect. So why is Florida so, popular? For myself, it is the ocean, the weather, it's a good lifestyle. Unemployment rate is 3.6% only. We have a higher sector in being medical, construction, teaching, tourism, hospitality, and that will, never change. The median income here is about 70.5, and we have about 47 miles of beautiful beaches, 400 miles of canals. That's quite a bit. And, we have about 109 public and private charter schools here in Lee County. And as you were saying, Tyler, part of why we attract people too is because of the school system as well. So that's just a few things about us here. Good. Next, Tyler, there we go. Okay. Why do we want to go towards new construction? The reason for that is that, to keep the maintenance low, you're going to have, no surprises on future repairs, renovations. The resale value is also higher. You got increased rental rates as, people like to rent a newer and cleaner building with less things breaking down, and you're going to have less turnover. You're going to have increase in sales value and higher appreciation. So that's one of the reasons why Marshall Reddick, our team here is trying to, really focus on new construction, because just to keep, better cash flow for you and, longer term of, not having big, huge repairs. So this here, Southwest Florida, if you are not familiar with Southwest Florida, just quick map here. This is Cape Coral over here. Our office is over here. And this is Fort Myers here. And then you get down here, you go to, Naples. And then on the other side here, you've got Miami, Lauderdale, all of that. So, we're kind of a central location because you can go, 2 hours and you get to Tampa North. That's a huge city. You go about an hour and a half and you get to Miami, which is, another big city. So we're kind of like the in-between hub. That's why we're in attracting a lot of, new residency here, and also businesses as well, and investors. And just to show, Cape Coral has been one of the, fastest growing city. And one of the things that we want to show you when we talk a lot about Cape Coral is that the Cape Coral commercial corridor here is just the Northeast Pine Island. And on this street alone, there is so many retailers and businesses open up, and there are still more coming. This street is becoming so busy that right now the city is working to actually enlarge that, road there so that we can support more of the traffic coming into the city of Cape Coral. And then, of course, Cape Coral is growing in leaps and bounds. And these are just some of the projects that is going on in Cape Coral. The Gulf Gateway Resorts at the 7 Islands. I mean, that is going to be, luxury condos, beach houses, hotels, meeting spaces. It's going to have about 37,000 square foot of commercial building with, amphitheater, waterfront amenities, just to attract, a younger crowd, families that will come and, work and live and play. And that's pretty much what Southwest Florida is trying to build right now, is that a destination not only for people to vacation, but for them to vacation, stay, live, work, and play, have that good lifestyle. And then the other big development that's going on is the Cape Coral Grove, and that's, transforming about 131 acres of, vibrant town center to luxury apartments, shopping, dining, entertaining, you name it, we'll have it for you. Parks, everything for, every sort of lifestyle. And then, of course, the Cove at 47th, which is $103 million mixed use development. Again, will feature high-end residential units, 1,900,000 square feet of commercial building, and rooftop sky lounges. So there are definitely a lot of things down here to bring families here, bring vacationers here, attract investors. As you bring more people down here, real estate is going to go up, and it's going to be good for investors. Hudson Creek in Cape Coral. Again, this is a major one. Look at how big this area is that they're going to build here. So it's going to take in several years. So, right now, is it a good time to buy? Yeah, because when all of these things get finished building, of course, the real estate is going to go up a lot more here in Southwest Florida. And then, of course, when we talk about Cape Coral, is one of the cities here, and Cape Coral has an initiative to bring everyone to city water and sewer over the next 10 years. So what does that mean for you? Because down here in Southwest Florida, even I'm in the city and I'm still on well water and septic. Is that, I don't have to pay for water, but then I also have to spend a lot treating the water and also taking care of the septic. So kudos for Cape Coral for doing this. And the assessment for each resident is going to be between $35,000 to $40,000, but it's not something that you have to pay the full amount. You can pay the full amount if you want, but it is going to be assessed on your tax bill over the next 30 years so that, it's affordability. And again, we go back to where Florida is a friendly state to resident and to, investors and businesses. And then just in Fort Myers, when I get into Fort Myers, Amazon is coming here, of course, just in the last few years. Amazon had built a really big, distribution center right here in Alico. Here about, in the center of Fort Myers, which is about 10 minutes from the international airport. And now Amazon again is buying, 143 acres in Fort Myers, and they're going to build a lot of buildings. And one of the reason for them to buy here is because it's a great place to live and work. You know that when big companies like this comes to town, they see the future growing. So that's a plus. And then the other project happening in Fort Myers is what we call the Alico Corridor projects. And it's, we have some that are completed and some that's still under construction. But here's a great thing. 1 out of every 3 jobs in Lee County is going to be right here in this corner. What does that mean? That means we're going to get a lot of people coming here through job transfer, to work here because there's an opportunity. What does that mean for an investor owning a property here? Is that the rental. You're going to get, working people, families coming in. They're going to need a place to rent at least for a year or 2 before they find their own home, know where they want to live, and buy their own home. And they could potentially buy your home at that point in time if they live there and like it enough. So again, there's a lot of potentials here in Southwest Florida. So the economy down here in Southwest Florida, we are in the healthcare, social service, retail, construction, and the accommodating and food services. So this is like a snapshot of our talent down here. Sales, we have about, almost 14%, executive and manager, administrative 13%, office, administrative, almost 12%, construction and extraction, that's about 7%. You would think that as much construction we have down here, this would be higher, but it's not. We do have a lot of, the other professions down here, which will bring families down here, and the food prep and service, 6%. And then the job market growth, and from 2019 to 2024, we increased about 12%. I mean, that's a huge increase. We're outpacing the national growth of 6%. The GDP for Southwest Florida, 2024, we exceed the national average again with an historical GNP growth of 3.4. Since 2021, an average of 6.7. Again, we are outperforming, with Florida at 6.2 and the US is at 3.4. So these are just, some great positive about here in Florida. Unemployment rate is low, 3.4. And here we go back again talking about, Cape Coral and Fort Myers here. We are the central hub. When you take a look at Tampa, another big city, Miami, another big city, and we're right in the center of all of that, and we're growing by leaps and bounds. So, here in Cape Coral, the metropolitan, in 2024, look at the population, 234, and then it increased about almost by 20% since 2020. That's a huge increase. Do we have people leaving? Yeah, we do, but we also have a lot of people coming in to replace those leaving as well. Our current growth, annual growth rate in Cape Coral is 4.3 and Fort Myers 3.4%. And the metropolitan area is one of the nation's, job growth leaders here in Fort Myers and Cape Coral. Cape Coral also has 120 square miles, making it, the largest city in Florida in terms of land, not in terms of, people, but in terms of land. Cape Coral is actually the 3rd largest city here. So why are people coming to Southwest Florida? We do rank as one of the best cities here in the US to start a business. And that was just recently noted. We do have great weather, economic opportunities, low taxes, We have entertainment options, that makes us a, ideal place to live with, the economy, great weather, low taxes. It all, makes Florida, a great place to be in. Centrally, we're located in between two metro areas, just like, again, Orlando, Tampa, Miami. Some of the great pluses here: no state personal income tax, woohoo, right? No corporate income tax for limited partnerships and S corps. That's not a great one. No corporate franchise tax on capital stock. That's another great one for being investors down here. And we don't have state level property tax assessed here. We only have the local government level tax. And no property tax on the business inventories, no sales tax on manufacturing machinery and equipment. I mean, these are all great pluses, when you're an investor, because you want more cash flow. And then a look inside Southwest Florida. The average household size here is 3. The median age here is, almost 49 years. Average rental rate here is 3.7%. And yes, most popular bed and bath mix is 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, single family, multi-units. So that has, used to be 4, the multi-units were like 2-2, but we're finding out that 3-2 is very popular here. So the single families and the multis now, when they build, that's the minimum that they build. Single family is, of course, gravitating towards 4-2, because you have families here and one of the reasons for that is that we now work from home a lot. So we do want a room to be converted to a office, and that's why the 4-2 is becoming more popular. Believe it or not, we're in a warm state here, but the most requests for upgrades are garage, fence, and a pool. I hear more garage and fence, because we do love our 4-legged family here. So those do make a great upgrades here. And one of the reasons too, and people don't think, Florida is such a nice weather, but we do have a lot of rain. So, in the summertime, we do have a lot of rain. So that garage is, quite attractive and appealing. Oh, Lee County and Charlotte duplex models here. Okay, so when we look at Southwest Florida or Florida per se, the structure here, I know, the environment is something we need to talk about. Yes, we do have the hurricane here. However, every new build that we have now, is concrete block. It's, impact windows. It's meeting all the environmental strain that we have to go through. I mean, there's a lot here to go through, all of that. But, like I want to say is the main thing is it's concrete block. And we're also built, when we build a home here, you'll see the mound on the home here. You see how a house sits on a higher mound. That's because of the flooding. Well, we know now, new constructions, they start to, fill the dirt and more. You start to raise that level more. So yes, do we have a lot of rain here? But then we prevent the flooding. We also have, high pressure plumbing system. That's very important down here with all the rain that we have. So, energy savings, all of that down here is, really important. The insulation, yes, the heat is, so hot down here, but again, insulation. So the homes down here are built for the environment. And then with that, I want to show you an example of, I think, let me go back here. I thought there was a slide. I can't seem to click to go back. Okay. Maybe it's forward. There we go. Sorry. It's okay. There we go. All right. So we're going to talk about this. We have some featured properties here to share with you. This one here is in Fort Myers. It's a new build, 2024. Total square footage is 2260, and it's concrete block. And if you can look here, the list price here is $534,900, down payment 30%. Just to show you, the initial cost, because it's brand new, we just put $1,000 there just in case we need to replace the lock or what have not, anything that's inside that we need cleaning or whatever that may be. So it will feature your investment capital needed. It's going to be 172.7, and for this unit here, the rental rate for both sides is $4,300. And if you look at, we're offering for new construction at 5.25% interest rate, where if you get normal conventional, this would be a almost 6.9 interest rate. But just by lowering this interest rate, it is going to allow you to have a better cash flow. So when you look at this interest rate, taxes, the insurance, management fee, HOA, this is not an HOA, property, utilities, and then, the lawn. Generally on duplexes, the investors take care of the lawn, and that's about $80. And then you get your monthly expense fixed cost, which is $3,497. And that gives you a cash flow of $800. So I think that's pretty good, cash flow property here for this new build. And then look at your, return on your investment. Almost 18%, 17.69.
Hey, Koo, could I jump in here real quick?
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Hi, guys. I'm back. I just wanted to walk you guys through our calculator real quick. So all of our properties on our website, you are going to see these calculations built. And Marshall Reddick, when we are analyzing potential investments, we like to look at our worst case scenario. That's our mindset, is to be as modest as possible and look at worst case scenario. And the idea behind that is that if the investment works for you under the worst case scenarios, then anything else outside of that is just going to be a bonus, right? And so, and we're very aware that there are other organizations out there that, offer similar service. And I personally attend a lot of their webinars and in-persons and all of that. And, what I've often found is, pie in the sky kind of forecasting and promises, if you will. We can't do that here because we're also going to be your property manager. So it's very important to us that when we're analyzing investments for you guys, that the numbers that we forecast for you are accurate, because there's this saying in real estate that you date your realtor and you marry your property manager, and it's very accurate, right? You're with your realtor for a number of months until you attain the asset that's going to work for your portfolio, but then you're with your property manager day in and day out. And so what that means is here, when we are forecasting what these investments should perform like for you, we need to be highly accurate, because when it closes, we're still there, right? And so when we're looking at these, we're looking from a worst case scenario. Now, when you look at, and I'm just going to run through the numbers again on this one so that you guys have a mindset of how we calculate these. So as we're looking at other investments this evening, it should all be nice and clear, right? So we have our list price. Now, keep in mind that these list prices are negotiable. Many times when we are negotiating on behalf of our clients, we're able to bring those prices down. Now, until we're at the table with an offer, we can't negotiate that, so we don't make any assumptions of what we could get this property for. That's why we put the list price up here. Now, the down payment, 30%. When you're looking at investment property, your minimum down payment on like a duplex is going to be 25%. The reason that we forecast at 30% right now are due to two reasons. Reason one is interest rates, right? With the interest rates being higher, the higher your down payment is, the better interest rate you're going to get, right? And so we have found that in today's world, when we're looking at price to rent ratios and all that kind of stuff, that the interest rates that we get at 30% are the sweet spot. Right now, if you put down 50%, you'll get an even better interest rate, but at that point, you have capital that's not being utilized to its full potential, right? So 30% is where we have found that sweet spot to be, if you will, right? And then when we're looking at this 5.25% interest rate, these are coming from the relationship between Marshall Reddick, our investment lender in-house, his name is Reed, and then the builders of these properties. So if you were to go to this builder without Marshall Reddick, you'd be looking generally at a 6.75 interest rate at 30% down. But because we do a lot of business with these builders also come to us during their design phase. They say, hey, Marshall Reddick, okay, you know, we have a new project going on. It's going to be 3 phases. We're in design of phase 1. What do these properties need to look like? And we'll sit down at the table and help them design, okay, this is the ceiling height that, you know, tenants are looking for. Here is the material that we like to see in kitchens, on flooring, paint material, all of that, because it holds up or it's easy to switch out during rental turns, all that kind of stuff. Because of those relationships, when we bring a client to them, the builder actually chips in, right? And they take some of their profit and they use that to buy down your interest rate even further, right? And that's kind of the mindset of why we spend so much time with these builders, helping them develop great product. Now, we're not financially invested in their build. It's purely from an educational and experience standpoint that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Builder, this is what we're seeing in the market and this is what we recommend. They're willing to say, okay, we'll help buy down your specific client's interest rates because we know that the numbers need to make sense for your clients because they are investors, right? And so that's how we get to these 5.25%, right? And then as you're looking through this, I'm sure that you're looking, okay, fixed monthly expenses, you know, provide me an income of around $800. And then, you know, you see this negative $5 down here at year 15. So I just wanted to walk through what that is and what that means. So your monthly income after fixed monthly expenses is what you are most likely going to see every month. After all of your costs and expenses based on the rental rates of these properties today, you should expect an $800 positive cash flow on this property. Now, again, Marshall Reddick is we want to do this from a modest point of view. We want to look at the worst case scenario. So we factor in maintenance and vacancy, right? And the reason we have this at 8% is based on historical averages. Historically, our clients on average hold the property for 15 years. The reason for that is that after year 15, typically you have so much equity in this property that it makes sense to use that equity in a new emerging market, right? Markets change every 10 to 15 years, right? So you have capital that you could be using to grow your portfolio that's kind of sitting stagnant in the equity. So a lot of our investors at year 15-ish, right, based on averages, are going to say, okay, I want to start analyzing other options. But it's also because of maintenance. We typically see, again, on averages based on the data we crunch, that after year 15 in a home's life, 15 years of cycling renters, we start seeing maintenance increase at this point. And it's at this year 15 where we start seeing these increasing swings in maintenance expenses and this idling equity sitting on the sideline that we say, okay, you know, it's time to look elsewhere. But when we crunch those numbers over a 15-year period, we see, okay, you know, during the 15 years holding this property, about 8% of the income went towards maintenance and 8% went towards vacancy. Now, that's on our property portfolio as a whole, right? We know when we're looking at a brand new construction duplex, we're not going to have that kind of vacancy, right? And a lot of these new construction properties are going to come with 10-year builder warranties, right? However, we factor it in because we're saying worst case scenario, right? And then we're looking at vacancies. Now, 8% averages out to about 29 days a year, which is generally accurate, right? From the time that you close on your property to the time that we're interviewing applicants, approving applicants, applicants then move in, it takes about 30 days. So that's where those numbers come from. So what this is saying, right, is that if you had a month of crazy maintenance and a completely vacant month, and then in that month, we put a new tenant in, so you see your leasing fee. Your absolute worst case scenario would be about a negative $5 for that month. But on average, each month through the life cycle of this, you should see about $800 in positive cash flow. Now, again, we look at the worst case scenario, right? And in this worst case scenario, we're saying that you never raise rent once in the 15 years you hold this property. Now, we know that's unrealistic. We like to raise rent every single year because we're an investment brokerage. We see these investments through the eye lens of an investor, and investing or increasing rents every year, of course, based on market, but that's something we like to do because we like to increase your returns. Up to you if you increase your rents. Some of our clients decide that they absolutely love their tenant and they want this tenant to stay forever, and so they don't want to increase. Up to you. But this projection right here is as if you never increase rents once over 15 years. So the reality here is that when you're looking at a 15-year projected profit of almost 460,000, we know that that's most likely going to be higher, right? There's a 95% chance that's going to be quite a bit higher, you know, especially as rates come back down and you guys refinance, right? Our in-house lender right now is doing a free refinance at any time between close in the next 6 years. So we know, and then when rates get a little bit of hopeful relief with the way this economy is going, the Fed is hinting that they're going to get a little bit deeper on their cuts moving forward. We know that once you refinance and you're increasing rents every year, that your projected profits are going to be higher. Your monthly cash flows are going to be higher. But again, we're saying, hey, this is the absolute worst case scenario because that's how we like to present it. And, you know, again, if the worst case scenario works for your strategy, then everything else is just going to be a bonus. Ku, I'm sorry for interrupting and jumping in on you there. I'm going to hand it back over.
No, I think that was great. That was great for explaining the calculator. So this property is the beach room we have in Cape Coral. So we're kind of showing you one in Fort Myers, one in Cape Coral, and then we're gonna have one in Lehigh Acres, just to show you the difference in, you know, the finance of the property. So this one, the list price is $574. And again, at 30% down, initial repairs at $1,000. Closing costs, $12,000. That brings your total investment need is $185,254. Now this one side is rented already, so the total gross for this duplex is $4,200 a month. And then of course we have the 5.25. Take all of these fixed costs out, and you're going to get your fixed monthly expenses at almost $3,600, and your monthly cash flow will be about $635. Then, of course, when you talk about, you know, the potential vacancies and maintenance repairs, yes, you know, and that's not going to happen throughout the year, but that will, you know, bring you at a negative 153. That's if we have vacancy. So it's still, you know, it's pretty good. The numbers work. 15-year annual ROI, almost 17% here. Anything you want to add, Tyler?
You know, all I would add is that this morning I was looking at my annual ROI in my stock portfolio, and I would kill for 16% right now. That's the only thing I was thinking.
Don't bring that up to me. I looked at it and you need a glass of wine to look at your stock now. All right. Let's go forward. All right, the next one, this one is in Lehigh Acre. And, you know, again, this one is at, you know, almost 500,000, 494. Down payment again, 30%, repairs 1,000, and then this brings your total investment amount at almost 160. And your gross rent on this is going to be $3,590, and with all the fixed costs, your total fixed cost here is $3,065, and you're going to have a monthly cash flow of $524. And then of course the vacancy here, when it becomes vacant and repairs, you're going to be at a negative 150 here. Look at your 15-year. Again, we're staying pretty high above the 15% for these properties. And this here just shows you how the market is over the last 10 years, how the ups and the downs, the increases. So that's, you know, why. I mean, the housing market, yes, is it soft now, but look at the performance here. Look at from 1999, look at the performance. Wouldn't you like to be here if you could have a crystal ball at 26 here? That would be great. All right. All right, Tyler.
Thank you,
Back
Koo.
to you for management.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate your insight in the market. I just want to go back and touch on this one real quick. So at the bottom here, property classing. I said, I know some of you are familiar with Marshall Reddick. We have some current clients on the call here tonight, but for everyone new to us tonight, property classing is very important, and it will statistically dictate the experience that you have with your investment. We wrote a book here at Marshall Reddick called How to Property Class. If anyone is interested in a copy, just let me know and I'll shoot you one over. It's about 40 pages. It's an ebook. It's very easy to read, but what a great place to start for the beginning investor. And what we see here is that between property classes, luxury A, B, C, and D, we see these statistical averages between maintenance and vacancy, right? And what we have found after crunching this data over decades and decades of doing this is that as you trend higher in this scale towards A and luxury class, we find that these properties really work towards appreciation goals and appreciation strategies, right? Because of the higher price points, the price to rent ratios chip away at the monthly cash flow, but on average at the end of your 15-year hold, the big needle mover is going to be your appreciation. And then as we step down this scale into B and C classes, we find that these properties, again, statistically averaging, don't necessarily appreciate as well, but they provide a better monthly cash flow, right? Just based on price to rent ratios. And so based on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish with your capital stack, this range really helps us when we're analyzing property. And you can use this graph for any state in the world. And it's actually pretty simple to do, right? So all you got to do, there's something called an MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. And what that is the average home price for the year in that city. And so you can simply go to Google and Google whatever area you're interested in, MSA. And then you are going to get that number. And that number is equal to the 100% line on this graph, which in this example is 420. This is the property class setup for the Southwest Florida area, right? So for easy numbers, let's say that the MSA is 420,000, right? And you are analyzing a property that costs 490,000, right? So what you would do is simply plop that on this graph, and you can say, okay, I can see that based on this price point, I'm trending up into the A and luxury class area. So I should, for my forecast and for my strategy, look at this property as probably an appreciating tool, right? Versus if you're looking at a property for sale that's say 300,000, plop it on this graph, and you can say, okay, based on averages over the last 30 years, this property most likely is not going to see massive appreciation, but the price to rent ratios are going to allow me to see more of a monthly income in my return versus long-term appreciation, right? And it's just a very easy tool to use from a high level, right, to get an idea of the assets as we're analyzing them, where they fall in the investment strategy. And again, those of you who are entering retirement, and you're looking to offset your W-2 income, chances are that a cash flow asset is probably making more sense for you, right? If that's your goal, right? Maybe you are saving for your children's education. They're going to start college in 15 years from now, and you're going to say, okay, the monthly cash flow doesn't affect me so much right now. We have W-2 jobs, we're making our money, but 15 years from now, when little Jimmy and Susie go off to Harvard, we know this is going to be very, very expensive. And so we want to have an asset that we can, walk away from at a 15-year time period and have that for them, right? So that's what that is for and how we use that. I also, looking at these, 30-year averages here, or 20 whatever year averages on the right, yeah, we see some red during the economic collapse, right? And many markets you are going to see that in. But what I always look for as an investor is how fast did we rebound, right? And you can see here, it only took a couple years to get back. And now, rental real estate investing is not a short-term thing. It is a very long-term strategy. But when we look at other markets, we see markets that took 14, 15 years to get back to break even. So the fact that this market was able to recoup and get back to their, where they were at before their losses in just a few years is, it's very promising, and it helps at least someone like me. I'm a very conservative investor. I'm not a risk taker. I don't like risks. I like to see this kind of stuff when I'm analyzing markets. It just helps me sleep better at night, if that makes sense. So just to touch on our property management, again, Marshall Reddick's property management is really the key here that makes this work. Everyone on this call, at least from the majority of those of you who I've spoke with, you have jobs. You're in IT, you're in construction, doctors, lawyers, firefighters, teachers, you name it. And you understand that, there's a place in your portfolio for real estate investing, but the majority of you I spoke with don't necessarily have the capacity to manage yourself. And self-management's not fun. Ask me how I know, right? And so the fact that with Marshall Reddick, we can help you identify and acquire the asset, but then we manage it for you every step of the way. It's just such a huge win. It allows you to scale and grow your portfolio. After 5 properties, it's a full-time job, right? So having someone else that can do that for you is just absolutely awesome. And all these numbers and expenses are figured in to those calculators that we just looked at, and when you're looking at properties on the website. So these expenses are not in addition. It's part of the calculations that we make up. And the fact that we can still see positive $800 a month cash flows with all this built in is just absolutely awesome, right? Again, we are data nerds. We create marketing packets for all of our markets, and these are extremely data heavy. If you are of that personality and that mindset, and you like crunching numbers, these are absolutely awesome. We update these every single year, and we analyze every little single piece of the market. So if this market or other markets are of interest for you, please know that when you're looking at properties in whatever market they're in on our website, right under the main picture and the main information, right down on the left, you're going to see a link to these data packets. So just want you guys to know that those are there and available for you, right? Our property rating ebook, we already went over this. This is a great place to start. If you are new to real estate investing and you want to really understand property classing, how it works and how it affects your investments, great first read. It's right here on our website, it's /ebook, but if anyone wants to just shoot me an email, I'll shoot you over a copy tonight, no big deal. We would invite you guys to check out our reviews. Me and Koo's, hope is, that after our conversation tonight, you understand that, we are professionals, we are educated, and we are experienced. But it definitely hits different hearing what it's like working with us from our clients. So we would invite you guys, please check out all of our reviews. We work very hard to gather as many as we can. Please follow us on social media. If you're on, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, you will see all the stuff we're up to. We're going to advertise our upcoming events. We do events on all of our markets. We do events on property management. We do events on 1031 exchanging, on tax prep, private equity, private lending, you name it, right? And so it's a great way to kind of stay up to date with what it is we're doing. And also we do post really good deals on there. So if you guys are hunting for a really good deal, following us on social is a great way to kind of keep in step, right? Because as you're on our website, you're going to see hundreds of properties available. On our social, we're posting some of our absolute best deals. So it's a great way to kind of keep an eye on that. If you see something on our socials that you're interested in learning more about, shoot me a message and I'll get you all the details. And so after this evening, I'm going to be following up with everybody here. And, we offer a free consultation, and it's just an absolute great place to start, right? Now, I would budget about an hour for these. And basically, this is kind of what the conversation looks like, right? We're going to talk about your why. We're going to set your goals. Are you trying to offset W-2 income? Are you saving for your children's future? Are you trying to get a Ferrari in 10 years? What are you trying to accomplish, right? And once we understand your goals, we can evaluate the options available for you. Like I said, we have a number of modalities here that you can invest in, and they all return differently. They act differently, right? They have different velocities of return. And so we want to evaluate, okay, what options do we have to help you accomplish your goals? We'll decide on your time frames and set your criterias. Then we're going to identify the markets where we can actually accomplish your goals in. And then we're going to introduce you to the key players like Ku, who can help you make this happen and help you acquire these, right? Think of me as your Marshall Reddick quarterback. It's my job to read the play and understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then help bring in the right parts of the team to actually make it a reality. And guys, here's my contact information. You can call me, email me, FaceTime me, text me, whatever works for you. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. Ku, thank you so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate you. We're going to send a copy of this recording to everybody who joined us this evening. I'm going to follow up with everybody. If anyone has any questions in particular after this call, please feel free to shoot them over to me and I'll get you an answer right away. Thank you everybody again for your time. Have an absolutely wonderful evening, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
All right.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
You,
Thank you, Ku.
Thank you.